Okay, hi, I'm doing this again. This is Rainmaker's Journey. And I think that I did a reel on my Instagram that said I was going to talk about this mini comic I had been working on, telling the story. It's called Don't Break Chairs, and it's telling the story of something that my ex did. And I actually hadn't really felt like talking about that now. But I wanted to maybe talk a little bit more about my BPD, which would mean I'd have to back up first and talk about my bipolar disorder because that was actually my first diagnosis. I was talking about my mini comic, but I thought that maybe giving a little bit more background context about my behaviors and where I am coming from and where I was at, so that would help you understand where I was at in that story. And also, I just wanted to point out in the last video, my little intro video, if you didn't read the description, obviously I was reading something. It was so obvious when I was watching the video back. Wow. So maybe at some point I won't need to do that all the time, and maybe at some point I'll remember to look at the camera. And that's really hard for me. I'm not talking to a person, and my camera is on my laptop screen, so I'm watching myself record, which is very distracting. Maybe if I put my curtain up, I'll look out the window. I don't know. Anyway, so I have a notebook right here that's got my old notes in it when I was diagnosing with my BPD. But so my bipolar disorder, I think that I was bipolar my whole childhood and into young adulthood. I always had these mood swings. Sometimes I was feeling very, very sad, and I didn't know why. And sometimes I just felt really happy, and I'm like, excited and everywhere. I never knew why I felt these things, especially when I was sad, and I would cry and cry and cry and not know I was sad, and I felt like I had to find some reason for why I was sad. Like people were like, "Why are you sad?" And I didn't know why I was sad, and so I guess I started looking for reasons to be sad. And I'm talking about like preschool and kindergarten. I'm like, okay, kindergarten. And so I feel really scattered right now, by the way. I'm really scattered right now, so I may end up being all over the place. Sometimes I'm more focused and clear, and sometimes I'm scattered everywhere. And I didn't write, like last time I wrote sort of an outline of topics along with what I was reading. But I didn't do that this time. So we're everywhere. Yeah. So it's like I just thought of a million things to say at one time, and I'm in my mind going, where do I begin? This is why I write notes. I didn't write notes this time. If you were here with me in my studio and we were talking, I wouldn't be all over the place scattered like this because I'm talking to a person. So it's hard for me to do this. Being random. I'm gonna pause. Okay. So there's this person, Alice Miller, who was Polish and was a teenager during Nazi Germany. And she became like really big in the psychology world in Germany. And she was, as far as I know, the first person, or one of the first people to come up with this concept that adults' mental and emotional issues stem from experiences that they had in childhood. Yes, I know. This is like obvious and old news. Everybody like is supposed to know this now. But there's a book she wrote in the 70s called The Drama of the Gifted Child. And it talks about narcissism in relationships, and in parents, and how these things, this all gets transferred, this trauma gets transferred to the child, and then it's how this disrupts them in their natural behavior and development and growth. So going with that and examining, what happened to me in my childhood, I think of there are certain experiences that I had when I was like really little that really stick out to me. And one of them was when I'm just like, a few of them are popping up and flashing bright. Like, pick me, talk about me. Okay. The first one that I originally thought of was I was this daycare, preschool, kindergarten that I was at, and where I was in preschool, and we were all playing these different games. Like, we were playing red light, green light, and Mother May I, and stuff like that. And if you're too young to know what those games are, please go find a parent or grandparent and they will tell you. I'm sure they will know. I don't remember, there was some kind of, like head, shoulders, knees, and toes, some kind of game like that. It was like a singing game, and it was about forks, knives, and spoons. Fork, knife, and spoon. And we were doing something with a fork, knife, and spoon, or the teacher was going to get them and they were going to dance. I don't know what it was. But I was asked to go to the kitchen and ask the kitchen ladies for a spoon, like a big wooden spoon. And I was like, the feeling that I had, and I was like 3 or 4, I was like maybe 3 or 4 years old, 3 years old, maybe 3 or 4 years old. And I was like, I got picked to go talk to the grown-ups in the kitchen and get a spoon? Okay, by myself. Okay, this was like 1978 or 79. Here I go dating myself. So yeah, this was the late 70s. And these days you would never send a toddler off to get such a thing. Okay. Anyway, I guess you wouldn't. But I was sent to go, and I went. I found my way to the kitchen. And they're like, what are you doing, baby? What's he doing here? And all that kind of thing. Why are you not in your class? And all these questions, they all just came at me. Actually, they were like, what's this baby doing out here? Why is she not in class? And I got all this kind of stuff. And the bigger, older lady came over to me and bent down and said, what you need, honey? And I'm from the Southeast, by the way. And she said, she asked me, I said, I need a spoon, a wooden spoon. Okay, so they got me the spoon, and they came back with me to the classroom. They walked me back to the classroom, and there was some discussion. And apparently, they didn't think it was cool that I was sent by myself to get the spoon, but whatever. And so there was a little drama over that, and I felt like I was in trouble and did something wrong. And that little thing really affected me. really strongly. Emotionally, it really affected me. Now I took this home and had started to question in my mind, like I was like wondering, like watching. I was watching out that I didn't get in trouble or that I did everything okay with all grown-ups around me. And at that time, and for up until I was 10 and my great-grandmother passed away, I grew up in a big 2-story house with my mom and my grandmother and my great-grandmother and my grandfather. And on weekends, my aunt and uncle came over. And I was only child. No dad, and he died before I was born. That was another story. And so that was an incident. And there was another incident in kindergarten, and I was 4. And I went to go to the bathroom and was having a number 2, and the door was wide open. I forgot to shut the door. And I mean, good grief, I was 4 and I forgot to shut the door. And we had the bathroom inside the classroom, And everybody looked and everybody was laughing, and I was so embarrassed. And that was like one of the first times I remember actually feeling embarrassed. And it was such a big deal, and I cried. And then I was embarrassed because I cried and everybody was laughing at me. And that was just, and this is like a normal thing that happens to a lot of kids. And a lot of people will say they should get over that. They're grown-ups, but those moments really emotionally affected me. And it's the thing is that this is something that always is ignored, but should not be overlooked. That this is the beginnings of where our self-esteem comes from. And I didn't have anybody to try and make me feel, but my teacher was frustrated with me and had to help me with my clothes and everything, because I was too embarrassed and in shock from the experience to know what to do for myself. And I was 4, I was still learning to go to the bathroom, really. So those are a couple of things that popped up. So anyway, I was beginning to feel I was would get sad and depressed. And when I was really sad and I would cry, and I was like, I remember being 4 and 5 years old, and I would go up to my mom and mommy, I'm sad. I don't know why. And my mom be smoking a cigarette. She chain smoked Bel Air 100s, and she chain smoked them. And she was like, damn it, Christy, I don't know what to tell you. And that's literally how she was. Damn it, Christy, I don't know what to tell you. And she's like, I could feel her frustration. My mom's a Gemini Cancer cusp. I'm a Pisces sun, Pisces moon, Aquarius rising by 1 degree, but it makes a difference. And Mercury and Mars both in Aquarius, if you're interested. And since 2020, the age of Aquarius happened, I identify as an Aquarius now. Okay, quick sidetrack. Okay, I'm getting a little more comfortable, I guess, talking. And so I would hug her, and I'd say, it's okay, mommy. Just hug me and pat me and tell me it's okay. And that's what I did. And and then my mom and my grandmother were always arguing over how to parent me. And I remember being 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, mediating them and running up to, or like they would have an argument and then they would go separate. And I'll go to my grandmother, Mali, we called her Mali. I was 2, and I was trying to say Mama and Alice at the same time. And Mali came out, so her name is Mali. and her actual name is Alice, and some people called her Alice and everybody else called her Mama. And there was only one Pop, that was Grandpa. So for a while everybody was, all males were Pop and all females were Mama. It was so cute. That's what they told me, and I kind of remember. Anyway, so Melly, I would go to Melly and just like, please don't be mad at my mom. I did something wrong and she was just trying to discipline me, and stuff like that. And I'd go to my mom and go, don't be mad at Melly. She was just trying to help, and stuff like that. And it was always a back and forth thing, and there was always this drama and always this bullshit. There was always drama and there was always bullshit. I grew up in this environment where there was drama and bullshit, but it was always glossed over, and nobody ever talked things out and had adult conversations. I didn't really experience that. And you know what? This moment, I don't think I really realized that. I knew that, but not comprehended, oh, it was that specifically. No, I didn't, come to think of it. Have, grown-ups talking to each other peaceably, sorting out their differences. The closest I might come would be my uncle Bill. And I'm very grateful for him, because he, everybody's passed away. Almost. My grandmother had 4 kids. My mom was the only one who had any kids, by the way. But my uncle, who was her older brother, he really taught me honesty. He really taught me honesty, and he was like the rock. He was like the grounded person. Pisces, Aries cusp. He was the grounded person in the family, I think. And this one time, I don't know how old I was. I was maybe 10 or 11 or something like that. And my mom was an amateur photographer, and we would go to the zoo all the time, and she would take photos, and she would win awards for them and stuff. And she had this she borrowed my uncle's camera lens that was really a long, heavy lens, and his tripod. And we went to the zoo, and my mom had it all set up on the tripod, standing up on the wagon that you could rent at the zoo. And I remember we were by the elephants, and she wanted me to pull the cart a little ways behind her, and I was like, won't it fall over? She's like, no, Christy, it'll be fine. And she pulled the wagon herself, and guess what? It hit a rock, and it toppled over, and the lens cracked. She was really upset. And all the way home after that, she made me promise not to tell my Uncle Bill. Well, guess what? I had to wait till the next Sunday when he came over, and I went up to him quietly when it was just us, and I told him what happened. Mom didn't want me to tell you, but it was standing up in a wagon, and I thought it would topple over, so I didn't want to pull the wagon. I thought we should at least lay it down, but it was only going to be a couple of feet away, and my mom pulled the wagon, and it fell over, and the lens broke. And yeah, it's a really expensive lens. And he's like, he was mad, but he was like, okay, Christy, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. I will deal with your mom. And you don't have to worry about it. You did the right thing coming to me and telling me. Oh, my mom was mad. She was really mad at me for telling him. And it took her a while to get over that. But she had to acknowledge, I think she was mad because she knew that I was right. And I was right for that I did the right thing talking to him, but she was mad because now, her pride or whatever, I don't know what it was. But see, so that's like a taste of like, what my family was like. There was a lot of passive aggressiveness from my great grandmother and my grandfather. And what I have come to learn as I had studied narcissism is that my great grandmother was the narcissist in the family. And when you have a mom, especially a mom or a dad who's a narcissist, one of the kids is going to pick up those traits. My grandpa was also an only child, and his dad died when he was 4 or 16. 16, that's right, 16. My grandmother's dad died when she was 4. That's trying to remember. And yeah, and also my grandpa, my great grandmother, they were from Alabama originally, and then they lived in New York for a while during the Al Capone time, and then came down to New Orleans. Anyway, let's see. Yes, we were talking about my bipolar disorder. Yeah, so I always had these ups and downs. I mean, I would get hysterical too. Sometimes I would be crying or laughing, depending if I was in a manic or depression, so hard that I would hyperventilate, and my grandmother would give me paregoric. And if you don't know what paregoric is, it is literally opium. And she would put it in 7-Up, and she would have me drink that, and it would calm me down because it was opium. And she would calm me down, and I would be calm, and then I'd lay there for a while, but I would be hysterically laughing or crying so hard that I would hyperventilate, and I'd have, if I was crying, I'd have so much tears and so much snot I couldn't breathe, and I was oh my God, it was a mess. And I mean, this is when I was a little kid, like 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. I think that I wasn't doing it quite as much in 5th grade. But 5th grade was when I was like suicidal a little bit, and I was having nightmares. It was really, really bipolar. In 6th and 7th grade, in 5th, 6th, and 7th, I was bullied a lot in school. Like after 4th grade, up to 4th grade, school was okay. But after 4th grade, and I went to this Catholic school, and we were not even Catholic. We were Methodist at that time. I'm not now. I do not consider myself a Christian anymore, by the way. Thoughts. Too many thoughts. Okay. Yeah, so at that school I was bullied, and there were cliques of girls, and they were all looking down their nose at me and everything, and I was like pretty much kind of ostracized in a way. And I had one friend, and she was from India, and I made friends with any of the girls that came to the school from India. There were 3 of them. One of them even stayed at my house for a short period. I think that there was some kind of domestic problem going on. It was not safe for her there, and I think the school came to the classroom and was like, hey, can somebody foster this kid for a little while who's in your class? She was in my class. So, my mom stepped in. I don't know a lot of the things, but there's some really interesting stories to tell around that, considering her experiences as a child in India and the kind of games that she wanted to play with me. It's really interesting, unique cultural things that I learned then at that time of my life, and about the world. And yeah, so like my friends were from India, and they were Hindu, and I was Methodist, and we were at a Catholic school, and every Friday everybody went to Mass, so it was kind of unique. But all the other girls would try to like pull her away from me, like physically. Hey, come here. Why are you with her? Come here. And like get her in with them and stuff. But she was the only person who advocated for me. She was the only person who stuck up for me. I didn't even know how to stick up for myself. I had like no self-esteem. There were teachers. The principal of the school, who was a nun, disliked me. And she purposefully made things hard for me. I mean, I was reading The Lord of the Rings for like the second time. And I would sit there and read my book on the bench at recess. And the whole group of girls I'd be sitting there, all like, there's like 7 or 8 or 10 of them, like all around me. And they're like messing with me. Like patronizing me. And that's why like patronizing is a pet peeve of mine. Don't patronize anybody. That is so rude and demeaning. It makes me so mad when people do that to anyone. And so they would harass me and heckle me. And so after a while, I wouldn't sit there anymore. I would go, or sometimes I would draw. Actually, I was drawing. I would take my sketchbook and I would draw also. And so after a while, I went and sat in the office just to read my book, so I could be left alone. And they were cool. The office ladies were cool, depending on the office lady. There was like one office lady, I think that she was in there like once a week. And if it was a day that she was in there, she didn't like me being in there for very long. She would send me back out. It would get to extremes. There were times where the harassment was so bad that I went and hid. So there's the 3rd grade building, which was nearby, and weren't on our recess. And this was 6th and 7th grade, when I was in the 6th, 7th grade building, and 12 and 13 years old. And there was in the hallway of the 3rd grade building, there was against the glass wall was a shelf that the teachers had their coffee pot on and stuff. And underneath that was a big box, a big cardboard box that was the lost and found for the 3rd grade building. And it was pretty big, and usually had a lot of jackets and sweaters in it. And I would go and hide myself in that box. I would squinch down and bury myself and cover myself in jackets and sweaters. Didn't matter if it was hot or cold. I would hide in that box for the entire half hour of recess until the bell rang. And I had my watch, and I would keep track of the time, and I would wait until like a few moments before the bell rang, and I would sneak out, and I'd make sure nobody could see me. And then I would exit the building, and then the bell would ring, and I would be in a distance from the 3rd grade building. Nobody ever knew I was hiding in that box. Nobody ever knew I was hiding in that box for 30 minutes every day. Yeah. And so those experiences were really bad. And 7th grade was the year that I was put on lithium for my bipolar. And because of that, it had to be regulated. They had to regulate how much I was taking, and they had to like run tests, and they had to do blood tests. I already had a lot of needle fear. And now I had to, at this facility, go and they would wake me up at 5 a.m, and it would be cold, and they wouldn't give me a chance to put on my robe or my slippers. They come and get me. Hurry up, we have to go now. There's no time for that. You can make your bed later. You don't need those slippers. and they come and get me. This one, usually this one really big black lady, and I had trauma because of that woman. And even when I had to go get blood tests for years of my life after, decades of my life, I don't have the same trauma now, but up until like I was even having this trauma when I was pregnant with my youngest, who is 8 now. But anytime there was a big black woman, I would have flashbacks of her, and I would see her. And she would come and get me, and they would give me a blood test in my, because I'm left-handed. They had to always do it in my left arm because it was a larger vein. And after a time, and this was every other morning, and after a time, I started to develop scar tissue in that spot. And so they'd have to find another spot to do my blood tests. And eventually it got to the point where they could no longer do any blood tests in my left arm at all and had to move to my right arm. And my right arm, the vein is so tiny they could break. And I had a huge trauma around that. Can you imagine? My blood vessel breaking. And so they would take it in this big vein in my hand. And I had an IV in that hand. In 5th grade, I was dehydrated. I just didn't drink water. And I got dehydrated, and I was in the hospital for 2 days. They say it was 2 days, but I swear to God I was in there for a whole week. I don't know how that works out. Maybe it really was a week and they're lying. Maybe I was in trauma, and so it lasted longer. I don't know. That was horrible, having a needle in my hand continuously. So, what else? The most traumatizing experience, there was a few, from that being there. It's not there now. It is now a different kind of mental health facility, which is good, because that place was evil. Anyway, so we were being fed grits. Okay, back up to the preschool kindergarten place. I was given grits once. I threw the grits up. People were mad. Grown-ups were angry and mad that I threw up the grits. I told them I don't like grits, and I didn't want them, and they made me eat them. I threw up the grits. They made a fuss. I had to go change clothes. It was a big deal. And, so yeah, trauma around grits now, yeah? Okay. Never had grits really at home. Nobody really made grits. I didn't know what a grit was. If you Pulp Fiction reference. And so yeah. So now at the mental hospital, they had grits. I didn't want to eat the grits. I told them I'm going to throw up if I eat the grits. They will make my stomach sick. You have to eat the grits. You have to eat something of everything. I said, I'm going to throw up if I eat the grits. They made me eat the grits anyway. They didn't believe me, I guess. They thought I was just trying to... See, that's the thing, okay? They were really hung up on... I mean, it wasn't just me, but on everybody. So, like, if in anybody's intake, they so much as hinted at a possibility of suicide ideation, you were like... They wouldn't allow certain things. Like, so this was, I had to eat because they didn't want me to intentionally starve. There were kids who were intentionally starving themselves. There was this one little boy who was 8 years old, and he had to drink vanilla Ensure. Now, the Ensure that you have these days, that Grandma and Grandpa have, is not the inshore of the 90s, the 80s, the 90s, the 90s. This was the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, that shit was gross. Okay. And FCC flag. Oh my god. So I don't know that it matters. Anyway, so yeah, so there's this little boy and he was starving himself and he was 8 and he had to drink inshore. He would go throw the inshore up. That's the kind of place I was in. And they'd make him feel bad about it. That's the kind of place I was in. So anyway, yeah, I ate the grits and I felt nauseous, and right across the hall, like the door, and then right across the hall is the other door for like the padded room. Literally the padded room. It had no windows, and it had a bathroom, and it had that had its own room, but no door. And it had like the one-way mirror window that they would view you from their little office cubicle, and a bed. The bed had straps. I asked if I could go in that room to throw up in there. Somebody else said, go ahead and let her. Somebody else said, and it was the big black woman who came in the morning to take me to get my blood test, said, no, she has to go throw up in her own bathroom, which was way down the hall. So on the way, she came with me, and I'm going as fast as I can, and I'm trying to run, and she wouldn't let me run. It was gonna come up. There it goes. It comes out into the hallway. They made me clean up my vomit. They made me feel bad for having thrown up. I couldn't help it. I told them I was going to throw up if they gave me the grits. What kind of a mental health place is this? They were abusing me. This was emotional abuse at a mental health place for children. Oh my god. Yeah. So after all of that malarkey was over with, they were arguing over whether I should be allowed to go and eat something else or finish my food, because the time had passed and moved on, and now it was time for something else to happen. Our day was regulated. There were periods of time for different things. Another thing that they did was there was some kind of outdoor, like at schools, they have field day. We had a field day. I always hated field day. Field day for my whole life had been a time of embarrassment. It was a time where it was open season to make fun of me and patronize me, just basically make me feel bad about what a loser I was. My PE teacher at that school that I was at that time that this was all happening, hated me. She made things hard for me. Yeah. I only ever had one PE teacher my whole school period who was cool with me. That was it. That was in high school. And no, he wasn't like a weird sex weirdo dude. He was actually pretty cool. And had this natural charisma where he could handle the bullies, even the girls. Cause and the guys. Nobody messed with me as much. And I made friends. That was cool. But like with other kids, he was cool. Anyway, so the field day, and one of the things was you had to balance the uncooked egg on the spoon and run run the race. You had to run the race with the holding spoon, not let your egg fall. Okay. I had this sweatshirt that was very special to me. It was meaningful to me from my grandmother, and I loved it. And it was black, and it had rhinestones on it that I don't remember actually anymore what the picture of it was or whatever. And yeah, my egg broke, and I got egg on it. I was devastated. I wanted right away to stop what I was doing and go see if it could be washed. I wanted to go in the sink and wash it. Of course, they weren't going to let me leave. This was field day. This is what we're doing. It doesn't matter. It's just egg. You have to keep going. I'm actually really proud of myself. I advocated myself. Here's my Mars and Aquarius going on, I guess. I was going to stick up for myself on this. This was that meaningful to me that I was willing to defy the authority. And this was huge for me. I barely ever was able to do this. But I wanted, and I kept pushing at it and found the right lady who would be, I knew the right therapist who I knew would be cool and advocate for me. It was the art therapist, the only person that worked in that entire facility that I liked, that was cool with me and made me feel good about myself, was the art therapist. Go figure, the art therapist. But I couldn't spend all of my time with her and had to go to the other people and stuff. So I tried to maximize my time with her. It was just amazing. And she was the one that helped me the most and was able to like advocate for me with the way the protocols were. And yeah, so I had somebody on my side at least. Yeah, and so they wouldn't let me go and wash it in my sink. I had to go wash it in the washer. And they let me do it, but there was this okay, but you're really not allowed, and we're not supposed to do this, and blah, 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 and special treatment, and all kind of things like that. Such BS, right? So, but that's another thing I've never forgotten, that was like something done to me. You know, so I struggled all through this. So then when, yeah, so I don't know. I think I'll leave it at that for now. I've been talking quite a long time. It's either going to be probably really short or really long. I don't know that I could be in between or consistent. We're not at that level yet. We're not at that level yet. I think I did pretty good. Everybody. I hope you'll come back for more. I hope you're not completely bored by this story. And I hope that maybe you found something validating or something you resonate with or have had. I'm sorry if you did, but maybe you had similar experiences. Please feel free to leave me comments. I really appreciate it if you're here. I'm very grateful. I'm starting to feel a little better. Like this is getting to be okay. I'm gonna do this. Yeah, I think that self-reflection time. I think that I learned some things and found new perspectives, which was a goal of mine in creating this video. Maybe next time we'll get to more of the BPD stuff. Yes. All right. Thank you. Bye.